I still remember the way the moonlight filtered through the curtains, casting shadows across her toned arms that night. Her gaze locked onto mine, intense, mysterious, almost intoxicating. And that's when I realized this wasn't going to be an ordinary evening. It all began with a text message. "Hey, sweetie," my Aunt Elena wrote, her words as comforting as ever. "I heard about the job loss. You holding up?" I wasn't. I hadn't been for months. I was 25, freshly unemployed, barely scraping by on savings, and drowning in student loans in Chicago. So when she followed up with, "Why don't you crash at my place for a bit?" I jumped at the chance without a second thought. She lived in a cozy cabin on the outskirts of a small mountain town, surrounded by pine trees and the faint scent of fresh earth and lavender. She was 41, athletic, graceful. The kind of woman who looked like she'd hike a trail at dawn and then brew the perfect cup of coffee in nothing but an oversized shirt. She'd always been my favorite aunt. The one who treated me like an equal, who shared stories without judgment, who saw me as a person, not just family. But I'd never truly appreciated how stunning she was. Not until now. She met me at the bus station in her SUV, hair tied back in a ponytail, wearing a tank top that showed off her sun-kissed shoulders. "Wow," she said, glancing at my backpack. "Traveling light, huh?" "Didn't plan on staying forever," I replied quietly. "Stay as long as you need," she said, giving my arm a gentle squeeze. "You're welcome here." Those words lingered longer than they should have, and so did the warmth of her hand. The first few days were straightforward. She set me up in the spare room, made home-cooked meals, and gave me space to unwind. We'd sit on the porch swing, chatting about life, watching the sunset paint the sky in oranges and pinks. Occasionally, I'd catch her glancing my way, a subtle smile playing on her lips. I wasn't sure what it meant. Maybe nothing. Maybe something more. But then came that night. It was around 1 a.m. when I stirred awake to the sound of wind rustling the leaves outside. The air was crisp and I felt restless, so I slipped out of bed in just my shorts and headed to the living room for a book. I didn't expect to find her there, in a loose robe that had slipped off one shoulder, revealing smooth skin glistening faintly from the humidity. She turned toward me. "Can't sleep?" Her voice was softer at night, velvety, feminine. It awakened something deep inside me. I shook my head. "Just wired." She poured herself a glass of wine and offered me one without breaking eye contact. Then came the silence, thick, charged, electric. Her eyes wandered over me slowly, taking in my bare torso, my legs. Then she met my gaze again and I felt my pulse quicken. "You know," she said, her tone a touch breathy, "you've really come into your own." I didn't know how to reply, so I sipped the wine quickly, hoping it would steady my nerves. It didn't. She stepped nearer. "Ever feel lonely in that room?" she asked, now close enough for me to smell her perfume. "Sometimes," I confessed. She reached out and lightly tugged at the hem of my shorts, sending shivers across my skin. I could change that. My heart raced like a drum in my chest, drowning out the wind. "Aunt Elena," I murmured, my voice faltering. She closed the gap, her breath warm against my ear. "Don't call me that." "What should I call you?" She tilted her head, her lips hovering near mine. "Just call me yours. That was the turning point." That was the night, and she made sure I didn't close my eyes for long after that. I could have turned around, made an excuse, retreated to my room, and pretended it never happened. But I didn't. Because when Aunt Elena whispered, "Just call me yours," every barrier inside me crumbled. I wasn't thinking rationally anymore. I was driven by desire, by the emptiness of recent failures, by a yearning I'd suppressed for far too long. She looked at me like I was desired. Truly desired. And it had been ages since I'd felt that. "You can't be serious," I whispered, my breath uneven. "I've been serious since you arrived," she replied, her eyes smoldering, her voice hushed. Then she did something that erased any remaining doubt. She trailed her fingers along my arm, from my wrist up to my shoulder, then down my side, her touch light but deliberate, like she was mapping every curve and line. I let out a quiet sigh, involuntary, as her nails grazed the edge of my hip. "You're so wound up," she murmured. "No one's been looking after you, have they?" I swallowed thickly. "Not lately." "You deserve better than that," she breathed, her hand lingering, exploring with a tenderness that made my knees weak. The living room was quiet, save for the distant howl of the wind and my accelerating breaths. Then she moved behind me, her body brushing against mine, her warmth enveloping me. "You could join me in my room," she suggested, her lips near my neck, sending tingles down my spine. I stiffened, caught off guard. "You don't have to," she added softly, stepping back slightly. "But if you do, I promise you won't feel isolated tonight." It shouldn't have been persuasive enough. But it was. I followed her through the dimly lit hallway, barefoot and vulnerable in my shorts, my mind spinning like a whirlwind. Her bedroom was inviting, dimly illuminated by a string of fairy lights, the air scented with vanilla candles. She sat on the corner of the bed, legs crossed elegantly, watching me with an intensity that made my stomach flip, and then she said gently, "You can still walk away." But I didn't budge. Instead, I approached her slowly. I stood before her, and then I reached out, my hand brushing her cheek. I felt softness, heat, allure. Her fingers found my waist, pulling me in with a firm yet gentle hold. It drew a sharp intake of breath from me. "Still restless?" she asked, her eyes sparkling. I shook my head. But then she leaned forward, her lips pressing softly against my abdomen, and whispered, "Let me soothe you anyway." That's when the night ignited. And no, she didn't let me rest. Not for a moment. I'd never felt so vulnerable, so acknowledged. So utterly possessed, Aunt Elena took her time. She gazed up at me from the bed, her kisses trailing along my skin like she was cherishing every second, not just claiming, but truly savoring. My legs trembled slightly. She noticed, taking my hand in hers and intertwining our fingers. "Everything all right?" she asked, her tone tender, as if the fragility of the moment weighed on her too. I nodded. "Positive?" she pressed, drawing me nearer. "I've never been surer," I whispered. Those words unleashed something in her. She rose gracefully, standing tall yet close, her presence overwhelming in the best way. When she drew me into her embrace, it felt like I'd found a missing piece of myself. Her hands glided to my thighs, lifting me effortlessly onto the bed, positioning me with care amid the soft sheets. "This night will stay with you," she promised, her voice a sultry vow. I already knew it would. She traced her fingers across my chest, her touch exploratory, as if discovering me anew. Or perhaps for the final time. "You've matured so much," she murmured, almost introspectively. "You're not that awkward teen anymore." I managed a shy grin. "You're not just the distant aunt either," she chuckled softly. "Think I'm past my prime?" "No," I said truthfully. "I think you're captivating." That softened her features. She leaned in, her lips teasing mine, building anticipation, and then at last she kissed me. It wasn't hurried or clumsy. It was profound, lingering, charged with unspoken years of glances and what-ifs. But those barriers had always existed, concealed. Now they were dissolving in a rush. Her lips journeyed from mine to my throat, my shoulders descending further. Each press ignited sparks on my skin. Her grip on my hips was restrained, yet urgent, like she was battling her own impulses. But she yielded, not fully at first. "Want me to pause?" she whispered, her mouth by my ear. "No," I exhaled. She kissed my temple. "Crave more?" "Yes. How much?" I met her eyes, yearning evident. "Everything you have to offer." That was the end of words for a while. Upon hearing that, she unleashed fully. That whole night, she ensured I experienced it all. Her passion, her desire, her long-held composure shattering in one evening. She cradled my form, drew me near, explored territories I'd never dreamed she'd venture. And whenever I anticipated a halt, she persisted, and throughout she murmured against my skin, "No sleep for you tonight. and she upheld that promise. By 2 a.m., the wind had subsided outside, but within those walls it was a tempest, not boisterous or aggressive, but profoundly fervent, like a flame that simmered steadily, engulfing all in its path. Aunt Elena positioned herself above me, a sheen of perspiration on her brow, her focus unwavering, as if I were a treasure she feared slipping away. Her movements conveyed necessity, not merely physical, but soul-deep, as though I mended a void in her that had lingered for ages. And in that instant, I yearned to mend her too, not just share her space, but her existence. "You good?" she inquired again, out of breath. I nodded, words escaping me. "Say if it's too much," she urged. "It hasn't been," I whispered. "If anything, I need more." Her gaze warmed. More. I reached for her face, cupping it gently. "This is unprecedented for me." She nuzzled into my palm, as if the contact was both agony and ecstasy. Then she kissed me once more, gentler now, yet more intimate. Her hands roamed ceaselessly, over my torso, limbs, spine, like committing me to memory. And when she caressed the nape of my neck, pulling lightly, I dissolved into her. I'd never felt so claimed, and never more content with it. At one juncture I ventured, "Why me?" She halted briefly. Gazing down, she swept. I'd never felt so claimed and never more content with it. At one juncture I ventured, "Why me?" She halted briefly. Gazing down, she swept strands from my face. "You're unique," she said. "You feel deeply. You perceive the hidden facets in others. You saw through my facade when I was fading." My heart tightened at her words. She continued, "You reignited my spark." I blinked away tears, unprepared for the vulnerability. By 3 a.m., I lay against her side, both slick with exertion and enveloped in a comforting hush. Her fingertips sketched lazy designs on my shoulder. Though fatigue tugged at me, sleep evaded because closing my eyes replayed her touches, her embraces, her protective curl around me, as if dreading my dawn departure. Part of me wished to remain in that haven eternally. But reality loomed, and that stung, because regardless of her affections, her holds, her affirmations of my worth, society viewed us as aunt and nephew. "Elena," I whispered. She glanced over, drowsy. "Any regrets?" She pondered, then drew me closer, nestling my head against her. "Only wishing I'd confessed earlier." My vision blurred. My emotions swelled. Then she added, "But you're mine now. Understand?" And that's when I grasped she hadn't merely kept me awake, she'd awakened me wholly, body, heart, spirit. I awoke the next morning, entwined in her limbs, her steady rhythm against my ear. For a beat I believed it a fantasy. Her warmth molding to mine, her essence lingering, the tender throb in my core that felt like fulfillment, not sorrow. Then her prior declaration echoed, "You're mine now." Yet daylight brings clarity, often harsh. Mine arrived as birdsong and my phone buzzing on the dresser. I moved gingerly, avoiding disturbing her, but she roused, mumbling, "Leaving already?" I faced her. Her hair tousled, eyes sleepy, yet she radiated beauty. "Just checking messages," I said softly. She tugged me back.
"The outside can wait," she insisted.
"This is what matters." And it did. Heavens, it did. But I sensed the impermanence, or did I? She prepared breakfast that morning, in a simple tea, beaming, swaying to an invisible tune in the kitchen. I perched at the island, observing, discovering this facet of her, the one beyond poised and reserved, but affectionate, homey, relaxed. And mine, if only temporarily. She placed food before me. "Dig in," I grinned. "Always so commanding?" She smirked. "Only for those I cherish." That paused me. I regarded her. "Do you cherish me?" She circled the counter, enveloped me from behind, arms around my neck. Then she breathed into my ear, "More than is wise." Words failed me, for I reciprocated. Every caress from the prior night held depth. Every kiss a revelation. Every glance an unspoken pledge. That afternoon I began packing. Reluctance gripped me, yet I feared imposition. No need to rush off, she said from the threshold. I stopped. Certain. I'm far from finished with you, she replied, voice sultry. Not by a long shot. She advanced, relieved me of my pack, and let it drop. Remain, she urged. I wavered. Questions will arise. Let them speculate, she countered. As long as you're with me. My pulse thrummed. I eyed her, then the spare room that felt like sanctuary. I nodded. All right, I murmured. Another night, she smiled knowingly. Expect no rest, she teased, closing in. And I replied, I wouldn't have it otherwise. That second night surpassed the first in fervor, unbound by reservations or trepidation. No holding back, just raw connection. We explored deeper, shared secrets and whispers between breaths, laughed at the absurdity of it all, and lost ourselves in each other until dawn crept in. Days blurred into weeks. Mornings of lazy coffee on the porch, afternoons hiking trails hand in hand, evenings cooking together, stealing glances and touches that spoke volumes. She taught me to fish in the nearby stream, her laughter echoing as I fumbled with the rod. I helped her tend the garden, our knees in the dirt, conversations flowing from light-hearted banter to profound confessions about past heartbreaks and dreams deferred. One evening, as we sat by a fire pit under a starlit sky, she opened up more than ever. I've been alone for so long, she admitted, staring into the flames. After my divorce, I built walls. But you? You slipped right through. I squeezed her hand. I'm glad I did. She turned to me, eyes reflecting the fire's glow. Me too, but what about the family? What if they find out? I shrugged, though the worry gnawed at me. We'll cross that bridge. For now, this feels right. Nights grew even more passionate. She'd surprise me with candlelit baths, her hands washing away my doubts, or spontaneous dances in the living room, bodies swaying close until clothes became optional. We experimented, discovered each other's rhythms, pushed boundaries with trust and consent always at the forefront. Her confidence inspired me. My eagerness thrilled her. It wasn't just physical, it was emotional alchemy, turning familial bonds into something forbidden yet profound. But shadows loomed. A family gathering approached, and whispers of my extended stay reached relatives. You're looking happier, my mom commented on a call. Aunt Elena taking good care of you? I mumbled affirmations, guilt twisting inside. Elena noticed my unease. We can stop if it's too much, she offered one night, tracing patterns on my back. But I don't want to. Neither did I. We decided to face it together. At the reunion, we played it cool, hugs that lingered a second too long, smiles that held secrets. No one suspected, or if they did, they said nothing. Back at the cabin, relief fueled our reunion, more intense than ever. See? She whispered as we collapsed into bed. We can have this. Months passed. I found freelance work online, contributing to bills, making the cabin our shared haven. We argued sometimes about chores, future plans, but always reconciled with apologies and makeup sessions that reaffirmed our connection. She introduced me to her hidden talents, painting landscapes, playing guitar by the fire. I shared my writing, reading stories aloud as she listened, head on my lap. One crisp autumn day, as leaves turned golden, she proposed a hike to a secluded waterfall. There, amid the mist, she pulled me close. I love you, she said simply. Not just as family, as everything. Tears welled in my eyes. I love you too. We made love there, nature our witness, the rush of water mirroring our passion. Yet challenges arose. A job offer pulled me back to the city. Go, she encouraged, though her eyes betrayed sorrow. But come back. This is home. I did, commuting weekends, our reunions explosive, absences heightening desire. Eventually, I relocated work nearby, committing fully. Years later, reflecting on that first night, I know it changed everything. Elena didn't just keep me awake, she illuminated my life. And in a world that might never understand, we carved our own path. Characters in a story rewritten by fate, longer and richer than we ever imagined. The air in the old cabin was thick with the scent of pine and rain-soaked earth. I'd come to stay with my step-uncle Marcus after a brutal breakup had left me crashing on friends' couches for weeks. He wasn't blood-related. My mom had married his brother years ago, but he'd always been around, the rugged, no-nonsense guy who taught me how to fish and fix a car engine when I was a kid. Now at 28, I was a mess, and he offered his remote lakeside place as a refuge. "Stay as long as you need, kid," he'd said over the phone, his voice gravelly and reassuring. I didn't know then that "as long as you need" would turn into something neither of us could control. It started innocently enough. The first night we sat by the fire, sharing a bottle of whiskey. Marcus was 45, broad-shouldered from years of manual labor, with salt and pepper hair and eyes that crinkled when he laughed. He listened as I spilled my guts about my ex, how she'd shattered me. "Love's a battlefield," he grunted, clinking his glass against mine. But there was something in his gaze, a lingering heat that made my skin prickle. I chalked it up to the alcohol. By midnight, the storm outside raged, thunder shaking the windows. I couldn't sleep, tossing in the guest room. When I wandered into the kitchen for water, there he was, shirtless, leaning against the counter. His body was a map of hard-earned scars from construction sites and old adventures. "Can't sleep either?" he asked, his voice low. I nodded, and before I knew it, we were talking again, closer this time. His hand brushed mine as he passed me a glass, and electricity shot through me. It was raw, hungry, forbidden. He didn't just touch me that night, he claimed me. Pulled me against him, his lips crashing into mine with a desperation that mirrored my own. We stumbled to his room, clothes shedding like leaves in the wind. He took me not once, but 6 times, each thrust a promise, each gasp a secret we couldn't voice. I thought it was just the storm, just one wild night fueled by loneliness. But one night bled into 2. The next morning, I woke to the smell of bacon frying. Marcus was in the kitchen, humming an old rock tune, wearing nothing but boxers. He grinned when he saw me, but there was a shadow in his eyes, like he knew we'd crossed a line but couldn't regret it. "Hungry?" he asked, plating food. I nodded, slipping into one of his flannel shirts that hung loose on me. We ate in silence at first, but then his foot nudged mine under the table. By afternoon, we were back in bed, exploring each other with a fervor that left marks on my skin. His hands were everywhere, tracing my spine, gripping my hips, making me arch and beg. It wasn't gentle. It was primal, like he'd been starving for this. And I was too. 2 nights turned into a rhythm I couldn't escape. By the 4th day, I wasn't just crashing at Marcus's cabin, I was inhabiting it. His bed became ours, his coffee mug mine by default. I'd wake to his arm draped over me, his breath warm on my neck. We'd make love in the mornings, slow and teasing, then again in the shower, water cascading over us as he pressed me against the tiles. Evenings were for the lake, swimming naked under the stars, his body slick against mine in the cool water. But it wasn't all passion. In quieter moments, we'd talk. He'd share stories from his youth, failed marriages, the loneliness of living out here. I'd open up about my fears, my dreams. It felt natural, like puzzle pieces finally clicking. But beneath it all, a current of dread built. He was my step-uncle, the man who'd been at family barbecues, who'd high-fived me at graduations. Now he was whispering my name in ecstasy, making me feel seen in ways no one else had. The sex evolved, too. It wasn't just frantic anymore. One afternoon, as rain pelted the roof, he laid me out on the rug by the fire, kissing every inch of me, from my toes to my eyelids. His mouth was worshipful, his fingers expert, drawing out moans I didn't know I could make. 7 times that day he brought me to the edge and over, each climax a deeper bond. But in the afterglow, as he stroked my hair, I voiced the fear gnawing at me. "Marcus," I murmured, "what if this all crashes down?" His eyes opened, dark and stormy. He didn't answer right away, just pulled me closer. We both knew the stakes. This wasn't supposed to be real. Society wouldn't understand. Family would shatter. That night, we didn't touch. We lay facing each other, inches apart, the space between us aching like a wound. His hand hovered near mine, but he pulled back. It hurt more than rejection. It felt like goodbye. In the silence, I realized this wasn't lust. It was love, the terrifying kind that upends your world. The kind where you'd risk everything: family ties, reputations, sanity. The next morning, I caught him watching me as I chopped wood outside, his gaze hungry yet tender. "Keep staring like that," I teased, wiping sweat from my brow, "and I'll never leave." He crossed the yard in 3 strides, wrapped his arms around me from behind, and nuzzled my ear. "Good," he growled softly, "because I've already carved out a spot for you in my life." My heart soared, but reality loomed. Later, my phone buzzed. A text from my step-aunt Lisa, Marcus's sister-in-law through my mom's marriage. "Hey, heard you're bunking with Marcus. Everything all right?" "When you coming back?" I stared at the screen, pulse racing. How could I explain that all right was an understatement? That the man who'd been like family was now my everything? That evening, Marcus found me on the porch, gazing at the darkening lake. "Second thoughts?" he asked, sitting beside me. I shook my head. "Terrified," I admitted. "Of what we'll lose." He took my hand, squeezing it. "You're not losing me. Not while my heart's beating." We leaned into each other, but doubt lingered like fog over the water. I grieved the innocence we'd shattered, the judgment waiting. It was the unexpected visitor that blew it all open. We'd just finished a lazy breakfast, me in his oversized hoodie, hair tousled from another night of passion. 8 rounds this time, each one more intense, leaving us breathless and sated. A knock echoed, sharp, insistent. Marcus opened the door, and there stood my cousin, Jake, eyes widening as he took in the scene. Me in Marcus's clothes, the intimate disarray of the cabin. "What the hell?" Jake stammered. "Mom said you've been here over a week. What's going on?" His gaze flicked between us, piecing it together. The hoodie, the rumpled bed visible through the hall, the way Marcus stood protectively close. Jake's face hardened. "You're kidding, right?" "He's family, man. Step or not, this is messed up." Marcus didn't back down. "It's not what you think. It's real." Jake looked gut-punched. "Real? You're twice his age, his step-uncle. People will destroy you for this." He stormed off, phone already in hand. I collapsed against the wall, hyperventilating. "This is on me," I gasped. Marcus tried to comfort me, but I shoved him away. "We've poisoned everything." The fallout was swift and brutal. Texts flooded in, family gossip spreading like wildfire. My mom called, voice icy. "Jake told me." "Is it true?" I couldn't lie. "Yes, but it's not dirty, it's love." She hung up. Friends distanced themselves. Whispers turned to outright condemnation. "Disgusting," one message read. "Forbidden." Marcus withdrew too. He slept on his side of the bed, avoided my touch. One night I confronted him in the dim kitchen light. "You regret me?" I demanded, voice cracking. He sighed, eyes weary. "I regret the pain it's causing you. The world won't let us be. That hurt worse than blows." He didn't touch me that night, just held me as we both trembled. In society's eyes, we were monsters, taboo, unnatural. I watched him feign sleep, his brow furrowed, and knew he was slipping away. But I refused to let go. He'd awakened something in me, a fierce, unyielding want. Even if we were outcasts, he was my anchor. The turning point came on a moonless night. I found him on the couch, staring at a packed duffel by the door. "You're running," I accused, throat tight. He nodded slowly. "Thought if I left, you'd heal. Family might forgive." I knelt before him, gripping his knees. "And you? Will you survive without this?" Tears glistened in his eyes. "No," I cupped his face. "I love you, Marcus. All of you." He broke then, pulling me up, kissing me with raw need. We didn't stop at kisses. In the bedroom, he revered me, lips mapping my body, hands gentle yet insistent. 9 times he took me, each a declaration, slow builds, frantic peaks, tender aftermaths. I wept from the intensity, from the love pouring out. We talked until dawn, bearing souls. You've lit a fire in me I thought was dead, he confessed. And you've shown me I'm not broken, I replied. Morning brought resolve. I messaged the family, the raw truth. Not the sensationalized version, but the heart of it, that Marcus made me whole, safe, alive. No immediate replies, but Marcus squeezed my hand. Brave as hell, he murmured. We're unbreakable together. 8 months on, the scars remain. Some relatives cut ties. Others thawed slowly, offering tentative olive branches. Whispers fade, but judgment lingers. Yet we're here, still entwined in sheets, cooking meals in borrowed clothes, stealing kisses by the lake. That sleepless night? It was our awakening. In a world that branded us wrong, we forged something right. Twisted, beautiful, ours. The end.